The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight! Oh,
We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Blurson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Hello there. Good evening and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis, Hejna, and gentlemen, I only have one question for you. Are you ready to rock?
Old people these days.
All right. We are discussing Hysteria, new thriller horror series that we thought was going to be a little more tongue-in-cheek comedy than we actually got. Surprise. Joining me tonight, Mr. Mark Radulich. Glad to see that you actually did confirm I am hosting tonight. This wasn't another miscommunication.
This is all you, baby. I can fucking walk off this shit show if I want to.
Speaking of which, Mark, you want to go grab a beer?
Yeah, absolutely. Bye.
Cool, bye. Would have worked better if I'd actually turned my screen off too, but whatever. We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
I was going to say, we'll workshop it. It'll be fine.
Very good. The gentleman who doesn't know how the buttons work, Mr. Dorian Price. How's it going? Where are you right now?
I am in lands unknown.
Okay, because I was like, you don't have the green screen. I almost said blue screen. Wow, I'm old. You don't have the green screen going on behind you. I don't see Shay or Mick emerging like the Homer Simpson meme. So it's like I'm assuming you're somewhere outside of Kansas City.
Oh, please. I hope this is like the last podcast where they won't sit still and they keep moving around. And oh, that was fantastic.
Well, we couldn't get her phone to work, so she was like, screw it, I'll just come in and sit next to you. And I'm like, yeah, no, we can work that out.
Just have her sit on your lap next time. Here, you, skirt, sit here.
They're both small enough. They probably could. Sorry, Shay and Mick are adorable, but they are tiny. They are adorable and tiny.
Well, I wasn't suggesting Shay also sit on his lap, but yeah, I mean, if you wanted all three of them, that's fine.
Oh, they both fit. Okay, Hysteria, created by Matthew Scott Kane, brought to us actually by the guys who have done a handful of movies, including Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Oh my god, your most favorite movie ever.
I was not the only one on the show who said they liked that movie. I was the only one at the end of the year who said that belonged in the top 10 movies of the year, though.
Dorian, has she been so always easily triggered? Okay.
Mark, you've known me longer than he has.
Oh, okay.
Okay, starring MJ Anthony, Chiara Aurelia, Kezzy Curtis, Julie Bowen, Anna Cam, Nolan North, Garrett Dillahunt, and special guest star, even though he was in every single freaking episode, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, he was not a special guest. He is a main cast. Fuck that shit.
Well, okay, to be fair, they did the same thing for a while with Alec Baldwin on 30 Rock.
That's true. They treated him like he was a special guest, like he's the main cast member.
Well, and also, and not to hammer the point home because it's not important to the show overall. For a while, they also did the same thing with Martin Sheen on West Wing.
No, he was the president. That's what the whole show was about.
I know, but if you watch the credits, it says special guest star.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Next year, for the first 2 quarters of the year, myself, Andrew Graham, and Jesse Starcher, our old television review is The West Wing because I've never seen it. I mean, the Freak Boy, John Brodigan, that was like his favorite show for the longest time.
I'd honestly love to be on that one if you need another window because I low key love that show, even though it like if how I am, how I dress, anyone who knows me, if I'm like, man, I fucking love West Wing, they're like,
I will always put it out there, and if you show up, I can't stop you.
Right? Because apparently I'm like Snoop Dogg, and I just show up when I want.
That's right.
Okay, so Hysteria is set during the Satanic Panic of the 1980s, and beloved varsity quarterback's disappearance causes whispers of occult activity and satanic influence throughout the town. Dylan Campbell, Jordy, and Spud, a trio of outcasts and a struggling heavy metal band called Dethkrunch, decide to capitalize on the town's sudden interest in the occult by rebranding themselves as a satanic metal band, which leads them to becoming targets of the town's witch hunt. So, from the trailers that we saw for this on Peacock, we thought we were getting, like I mentioned before, very tongue-in-cheek comedy. We've done a lot of discussion about the 80s and the Satanic Panic. It's actually come up a couple of times on the show with things we have reviewed, including Late Night with the Devil, Maxine. I know we haven't reviewed Stranger Things, but that was also a theme in that one as well. So we talk a lot about, there's been a lot of shows and movies that have focused on the 80s, and obviously this is a, pretty interesting point of the 80s to want to discuss. So starting in 1989, yes, we have Ryan Hudson, the star quarterback for the small town of Happy Hollow, who goes missing along with his girlfriend, Faith Whitehead, supposedly abducted by two creepy men who got their masks from Wish.com when they looked for Court of Owls costumes.
I know I am chintzy with the praise for you, but that was legitimately funny. Well done.
Thank
It
you.
was actually supposed to be an episode of Penguin, but when the
If I don't tell her she does good, she thinks I'm mean to her.
I feel that. I've been there for those podcasts.
I'm not insecure, Okay, so so the town goes a little nuts. We have Dylan Campbell and Jordy and Spud who are struggling in this heavy metal band, and when the popular girl Judith takes an interest in Dylan because she thinks that his band might know something about what's going on, because of course all Satanists all know each other and all work together and stuff, right? Dylan gets the idea that they should rebrand themselves as Satanists. So they start releasing more focus on witness all evil, which of course starts fueling the fan of WTF in this town. We have Tracy Whitehead, Faith's mother, who is a very scary Christian. We're just going to go with it.
Carry anyone?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Piper would be proud.
And Mark has probably already thought while watching this movie, was like, oh, especially when they get into the deep end religious stuff and how religious the mom is and the family is. It's like, oh, well, Dorian's going to have some choice words when we review this bitch.
I will say two things. One, I'm trying to look up the actress who plays Judith because she is smoking hot, and I want to make sure she's over the age of 18.
Her name is Jessica Tresca. She doesn't have a Wikipedia page, so you might want to check IMDb.
Yep, that's where I am right now. And the other thing I will tell you is, she's 21. All right, cool. I can be a pervert about this. But the other thing is, as I watched this show, I kept thinking about, because I grew up in the 80s, and I at least had a sort of passing knowledge of where the parental advisory sticker came from. The whole Chipper Gore, Al Gore thing with the with American music and the congressional hearings and whatnot. And I always tell this anecdote. So when I moved to the white neighborhood, I was about 12, 13 years old, and I started listening to what the kids around me were listening to, and they were all listening to Metallica, Megadeth, that sort of thing, Ozzy, Slayer. And I got into Slayer, along with all the other bands. And to this day, Slayer remains one of my favorite bands of all time. I've seen them 24 times. I told my mom, my dad's whole thing with me in music was, as long as I don't have to hear it, I don't give a shit what you listen to. That's why I'm the way I am. So 12 years old, I have a copy of Two Live Crews, As Nasty as They Want to Be. But I also, any album I wanted, including Slayer, I got. So I'm telling my parents about whatever Slayer album was out at the time. And my mother, without missing a beat, my Jewish mother, goes, "You're not going to get into Satan now, are you?" And when my dad stopped laughing, before I could get another word out edgewise, he was like, "No, he's not going to get into Satan. Don't be stupid." But that mentality, Welcome to how
Can you feel the love tonight?
Welcome to how I grew up as a kid, and you wonder why I am the way that I am. But the only point that I'm trying to bring up here is that's Long Island, New York, not exactly Bible country, And my mom is a lapsed Jew, and my dad's a Catholic atheist. Not exactly the height of like Bible Belt religious people. And even my mom was like, "Oh my God, if he listens to heavy metal, he's going to get into Satan." That's how pervasive this stuff was in the culture.
Although, could you say that again? Your mom was a
lapsed Jew.
Lapsed Jew. Okay, I missed the first word.
And father was a Catholic atheist.
Yes, he was.
I smell sitcom,
or horror movie, whichever you want to call it. He was born and
comedy
raised.
Horror.
He was born and raised an Italian Catholic, but he did not keep the faith like many Catholics on Long Island.
Fair.
All right, so doing a little reading about this. Apparently, Matthew Scott Kane, born in 1990, got kind of the idea for this actually when he was a kid. He went to his first concert, which was Kiss, and he decided he got the band T-shirt, wore it to the next day, and his teacher would not allow him to come into the classroom because, gentlemen, what does Kiss stand for?
Knights in Satan's service. Ah!
No, it means keep it simple, stupid.
That too.
Of course. Which, inspired him this idea of just how people thought music was so just, I mean, kind of a reaction like that still nowadays makes you turn your head and go, what? So let's go ahead and get into this. Mark, I sent you the link for this, said I was interested. You said it looked pretty good. What about this caught your eye and made you want to jump in on this?
One, anything having to do with music, either as its major plot point or storyline or a subplot. Jesse and I did the Wu-Tang Clan show. It wasn't necessarily, it was only tangentially music related, but me and Jesse did the Pam and Tommy show, and who is Tommy in the Pam and Tommy, but the drummer of Motley Crue. So anything having to do with music, I'm going to have at least a passing interest in. I really enjoyed Bruce Campbell in Ash vs. Evil Dead. So when I saw he was in this, I was like, okay, I want to support things that he's doing, especially like current things. And if this is the current thing he's doing, then I want to make sure I see it. About a year or two ago, you twisted my arm and made me review Black Friday, I think it was. That was a really cheeky Bruce Campbell zombie horror movie, if I remember correctly. And I enjoyed him in that too. And I was like, okay. Between, the heavy metal, the 80s, Bruce Campbell, Satanic Panic, that idea of the preoccupation with religious zealotry in the culture, and versus subversive cultural things like heavy metal music. These are all things that interested me. Had I known it was going to lean as heavy on the supernatural as this show does, I don't know if I would have agreed to this. This stuff about the religious people creating a fervor and targeting kids that are of the weird culture, that's appealing to me. Watching a demon drag the poor lady from Modern Family up a flight of stairs, I almost fucking noped out of this review.
All right. Mr. Price, same picture or same question? Dorian, hello. You're muted, dude. I can't hear a word you're saying. Okay, your microphone's just clearly not working. Nope. We can't hear you, man.
Okay, until he figures this out, let's move this along. People are watching.
All right, so we were talking before this. Again, looking for the trailers, you do see a little bit of the supernatural element. There is a scene in the first episode where Julie Bowen, who is Dylan's mother, is clearly getting dragged up the stairs by some unseen force. She's screaming. The lights are red. Looks like a student film who was trying to redo The Conjuring. Oh, okay. He's working on it. Thank you, Shay. Keep us informed. But this show really does not do a lot with the supernatural. As the name implies, this is a show that focuses on mass hysteria. The idea of this fear gripping this town of Happy Hollow, all these people saying that they're experiencing supernatural elements, and guess what? They're not. But mass hysteria is a real thing. We have seen countless cases over the years of people, just groups of people, large groups of people going through similar experiences. It's not something that can really be scientifically explained, but it's something that still happens time and time again. They mention a couple of examples in the show, the Halifax slasher and the June bug epidemic among them.
I think Dorian can speak now. Dorian, you have the power of speech.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, we can hear you, Major Tom.
Tell my wife I love her very much. I was waiting for one of you to do it. No, keep going, Alexis. Sorry, I don't know what the hell happened with the mic, but it's back now.
It's fine. Why don't you go ahead? The question I had asked before we started talking about the elements of mass hysteria is, what about this show drew you in? When I announced that this was on the schedule, what made you say, oh, please pick me, Professor, I want in on this?
Well, yeah, it was very much over the last couple of years, we've always done a Mike Flanagan show, and we didn't have a Mike Flanagan show this year. And this show, just from the trailers, gave me Stan versus Evil vibes. I don't know if anyone else other than me and like a few other people watched that. It had Dr. Cox from Scrubs in it. It was hilarious. It didn't get as much love as it should have. But again, I have to agree with Mark. Seeing Bruce Campbell was in it, I was like, fuck yeah. And then when I watched the trailers and kind of like did some digging on what the director and the writers had said, I was like, okay, I was nowhere near alive when this happened, but you know,
you get younger every podcast, so I assume by this point you weren't even around when 9/11 happened.
No, I was alive when that happened. But no, it's like I don't have any other than stories connections to the 80s, so you know that therein lies, you know, a little bit of an issue. However, as you were saying, Alexis, when my mic came back on, it was the whole thing of like, it keeps happening. And, you know, a lot of the things they talk about in this were very prevalent during my young childhood in the early 2000s, especially due to the Harry Potter craze, directly versus Lord of the Rings, which was like, that's magic and weird shit too. Yeah, but it's different because, man, it's like, okay. But so it drew me to it just because, again, the Satanic Panic is always interesting to dig into, but I agree with Mark. I have no problem with supernatural stuff. I think it's fun. I just, yeah, the trailers felt like we were going to go more tongue in cheek and more, no, this is all, you know, drug induced and crap like that. So
I'm wondering how much of the development and writing of this show comes from the people who worked on it looking at the post-Trump world we're living in and going, you know, and drawing that kind of an analog. You know, you have, I talked about this before the podcast started tonight. The religious right starts to have a voice during the Reagan administration, and it becomes a very, you know, they were the silent majority, as Reagan would call them. And they would come into prominence throughout the 80s, which is where a lot of the Satanic Panic stuff comes from. And you just hear zillions of stories from all across America, from New York to LA to, you know, to flyover country, about those in power with alleged or actual religious convictions targeting people who didn't fit into a very strict box of what Americans should act and be like. And now fast forward to post 2016, and you have a lot of disenfranchised, disillusioned, angry people banding together, creating mobs and finding targets, much as that group did in the 80s. And I'm wondering how much of this show is that kind of reflection.
Absolutely.
I do want to say.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Same article. I want to read a quote from Kane. Everyone has their own version of the truth, and I was very uncomfortable with how that was changing. I wanted to tell a story that was in that kind of ballpark. I'd been researching the Satanic Panic for a long time, and it felt like these things are a very natural way to talk about each other. So I wanted to do a Satanic Panic show that was an allegory for what we're going through in this current moment. It doesn't
I'm
seem
so
like it's
smart.
changed all that much since 2009, unfortunately. We're still, it took the show was written in 2019. It took 5 years for us to get it on the air.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's
but you're
3 years,
absolutely
and that's
right.
3 years after Trump got elected president, people, and 1 year before COVID will vote him out of office. Oh, I mean,
again, with the same issue we're having, and again, without getting like, I don't want to get political in this, but there's a political ad that keeps playing. That actually, Michaela the other night turned to me and went, "Is this a real ad or is this part of the show you're watching?" I'm like, "I actually, sadly, that's a real ad." And I will not bring up the person running for government's name, but if you've seen the ad, you know who it is. Is this person says that mental illness isn't real, it's demonic possession.
Good night, everybody.
Yep.
Get back here, Mark. You're not out of this shit yet. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Again, well, I'm just going to have to go and say it. We had a political candidate in the national debate say that that Haitian immigrants are eating dogs and cats, and we have seen a massive spike in crime and hate crimes against immigrants because of it.
Right. So it's one of those. It's part of the reason I'm still doing this tonight, and I committed to this. Other than an elephant faithful 100%. I said I was going to do it, so I'm doing it. But for me, the supernatural stuff I could give a shit about, and it's honestly the worst part of this show. For me, the reason to be here is because this show is a reflection. This show is a reflection of what's going on in modern times, and I think there's where the grist for the mill discussion is.
Absolutely, and again, it's what I think is funny about it is like every generation will say, "Man, our time," and I know my generation's time is coming here in about like 10 years or so. When it's like, our time was the best time for rock. But if you jump back, they will say the same thing. And strangely, it's the same thing with the Satanic Panic. And very quickly bouncing off what you said, Mark, about like, Reagan brings the Christian voice into politics. Oh, bullshit. You guys have been in it since day one. No one was disagreeing with you. And Reagan finally gave you a megaphone you could scream through. That's the only thing that changed.
Believe the word you're looking for is validation.
Right?
All right. I do want to talk a little bit, though, about the character of Tracy and her influence on it, because, again, this show gets really dark really fast when you find out what Tracy has gone through. You start to think that something's not right with the way that she reacts. Faith, her daughter's kidnapped along with Ryan. She apparently tells everyone that she had strep throat, although she says, "Oh, I know, she just ran away from home briefly." Faith comes back looking a lot worse for wear, not remembering much of what happened to her because she was being drugged. And her mother is just like, "Oh, it's okay. Everything will be fine. You can go back to school. It's all okay." And it's pretty creepy how it's like, any other parent should probably be reacting in any other way than this.
Well, again, none of us liked this movie, but let me bring up the parents' reaction in Exorcist Believer. When we find the kids, he's tearing through that hallway trying to find that damn room, and it's just like, you're alive. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna breathe now. Fuck, Again, the movie itself, Exorcist Believer, isn't good, but again, with this show, it shows you that through that reaction that it's like, okay, you're the bad guy, aren't you? Which again, if you didn't already know that from before then you just have never watched a horror movie ever that had Christian people in it. The Christian person doesn't show up, and they're not pious and like usually sitting in a church next to the hero and being like, "I believe I've always believed there's ways to get through things, and whether you think it's God or spirit inside yourself, that's the weapon you have." If they aren't saying shit like that, you're screwed.
Thank you, Stephen King. But yeah, we find out more, especially in the 5th episode, just how terrifying this oh damn, I clicked on the wrong link there. How terrifying Tracy's life was. Her parents turned her over to he calls himself a deprogrammer, but there's no way around it. He's a brainwasher. This dude actually gets paid to abduct teenagers and brainwash them into becoming good little Christian zombies.
Well, yeah, because Tracy's part of a hippie commune.
Mhm.
And that's what she gets yanked out of. So this is like 2 inches from Stepford Wives. Just the original Stepford Wives, not the weird robotic one with Glenn Close and Christopher Walken.
Yeah, and Faith is so, or no, I'm sorry, Tracy is. I am going to go screwing up these names constantly. I'm sorry. Tracy is so devoted to this nut job who calls himself the Reverend that when she thinks that Faith is having sex as a teenager, she doesn't even talk to her. She just basically screams at her, calls the Reverend, says, "I need you to kidnap my daughter and scare her straight." And it is scary. So I was thinking back to what's the name of that movie? Disturbing Behavior. That Jordan, remember they put that on one of the nights we were hanging out at the Rewind and Dive, and you see all these parents who are willingly signing up their children to be brainwashed by this doctor so they could be good little boys and girls who iron their clothes and do their homework and don't listen to rebellious music, and it's very scary. It really is. And Tracy is just a new level of horrifying as a parent. Although I have to admit, when I first found out what she did, it reminded me of a South Park episode called "My Future Self and Me." Either of you remember this?
Oh
episode?
yeah, that's the one where like they're like fake time travel or something like that. But the idea is
Yes.
to scare the kids straight from using pot. They're like, if you use pot, you'll end up in the gutter, and and they
living in a van down by the river.
At the very end, I think it's Stan's dad. That's just like, look, everything to excess is going to ruin your life. The pot's not that bad, but you can't let it be the only thing in your life.
Yeah, basically said, look, it's not going to fund terrorism, and it's not going to kill you, but it could ruin your future.
Yeah, if that's all you do.
Yeah, and I was reminded, it's like, because I was hearing, it's like, yeah, if only Tracy had actually sat down and talked to her daughter, because Faith gets a pamphlet for birth control, not because she's having premarital sex, but because she has horrible cramps. And birth control actually can help alleviate serious menstrual symptoms. I actually was on birth control in high school because of a similar reason. I had the craziest mood swings ever. And my doctors advised my parents to put me on birth control to kind of help level out my hormones. I'm not the only person who has gone through that.
Well, I'm sorry to see that the medication never worked, but I'm glad they tried something.
Wah, 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 wah.
You opened the door, you threw out a red carpet, and you put out the welcome mat and had a drink waiting. Like I wasn't gonna walk through that.
Honestly, I would have if I wasn't watching basketball while we're doing this.
Oh, great.
But my job is to just cover his jokes. He's like sending them psychically, and I'm like, that's actually funny. I'll say that.
But yeah, birth control is widely prescribed for teenagers who have serious symptoms like that. And we see that Faith has really bad problems with her cramps. So her doctor or the school nurse says, here, you should try this. I think it could help with the symptoms. Her mother sees the flyer, doesn't even ask why she has a flyer for birth control, just assumes automatically she's having sex, that she's become the town harlot. Doesn't help that Faith's getting a rumor spread about her because she blue-balled a total jerk. And he started spreading rumor around that she actually slept with him. So yeah, it really opens up the fact that parents need to stop being so afraid to talk to their kids. This is something that, unfortunately, it's not an 80s thing. It's a forever thing.
I think one of the things I wanted to throw out there was how much of the decades after the 50s, the middle-class suburban life really tried so hard to maintain America of the 50s. Like well into the 80s, we were still hanging on to that. I mean, by this point, we're so far removed from it that, do I know people? Have I podcasted with people who would love it if we went back to the 50s? Sure. But, but I think a lot of the Tracy character, Tracy's the mom, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of the Tracy character is sort of that amalgamation of the kinds of people who were very protective of the again, the 50s lifestyle post World War II, that boomer generation trying to recreate it and it became the most valuable thing ever, and they would do anything to maintain it as life was rapidly changing. If you're somebody who is sheltered, and you're coming from an entire generation of fairly sheltered people, and you're now living in a world of the 80s. The AIDS epidemic is happening. Music is changing radically. We just came out of the sexual revolution and all that entailed. It's not hard to believe why. Like, it's easy to demonize these people, and certainly I'm not on their side. I wouldn't have want that to happen to me. But I can also empathize with where a lot of them are coming from. The world was because you're seeing it now. The world is rapidly changing. The people that are felt like they had a place in this country and a prominent place in this country don't have it anymore, and they with a loss of control and a loss of ability to maintain the status quo, they went to the easiest thing they could control, and that was their kids.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that makes Tracy, at least the more terrifying for me, is, again, those of you who don't know, I'm adopted. So when I say I was raised by someone, if you should actually, well, again, you can't actually meet my birth mom, but if there's a person I call my mom, and it's not who raised me, she's adopted, she's awesome. Those of us who have hung out with me know Angel. Hi, Mom. Anyways.
Hi, Angel. We love you.
Having been raised by someone who was very much like Tracy, who, with her conversion therapy and brainwashing, from being this, fun hippie, to being her own mother, turning her into, again, the Star Wars line, now you've become the very thing you swore to destroy. And that's what makes, in my opinion, it's one of the best parts of the show, is Tracy's characterization. Is you can blame her because she's making the same decisions that hurt her, but you get so deep down into that pit after, your own mother's done it to you, that it's like, I kind of felt bad for her, because I'm like, she doesn't know a world where this isn't reality anymore. She doesn't have that spark of that fight that was the hippie, fire within her. She's been completely broken by this monster that is the Reverend, who, again, I'm sorry, if you call yourself something that I could put on a page next to things like the Riddler and the Joker, you've done fucked up.
Yeah, this guy was the Reverend is going to go down, I think, as one of the more scary, I should say, TV villains we've had in a while. This guy, so the reason that Ryan, the quarterback, ends up dead is not because he was killed in a satanic ritual. The poor dude had asthma. They ended up kidnapping him along with Faith because he just wrong place and wrong time, and he suffers an asthma attack because they don't have his inhaler. Or what are those pens that you give people with? Is it an EpiPen? Okay. So he dies.
I don't feel bad for him. He knew how crazy religious the mom was, and actually pointed the right way because her picture's on that side of the screen. Dude, have you not seen Brian De Palma's Carrie? Do not hook up for any reason with the crazy Christian girl. Shit always goes wrong. Ask the motherfucker who looked like Peter Frampton in the original Carrie.
I mean, for the 20 minutes it's, that you're with the girl, though, it's going to be really fun. Might even be worth it.
To die will be a great adventure. Valhalla.
So the two kidnappers bring Faith and this boy's dead body to the Reverend, and the Reverend's just basically going, oh shit, everything's gone wrong, we got a dead kid on our hands. But then he stops and goes, well, this isn't our fault. No, this is a good thing that the boy died. God has given it's like, and he tells Faith that it's like, no, he died because of you, because if you hadn't been tempting him with sin, he wouldn't have been there to have been kidnapped by the guys that I sent to kidnap and brainwash you.
Yeah, it's nothing like a healthy guilt trip.
there's an old joke, and I'm not going to tell the entire thing, but I'll do the very short version of it, which is basically it's God talking to humanity, and it's like, all right, here's the garden, you can do whatever you want, just don't eat this tree. He goes ... and it says Adam and Eve, we ate of the tree. And the first one is, guys. And then the second thing is like, worship no other gods for me. We worshipped other gods for you, guys. And then like the third one is like, love your neighbor, all that crap. And like the last one is God literally going, guys. And he's like having like a small aneurysm, like fucking headache. And having been raised, again, crazy religious by Mr. and Mrs. Christian McGee, as was coined by Mr. Mark Radulich, which I use now all the time.
Did
even
I
when I'm
wound you with that? You bring it
No,
up
I
every
love it. That's
podcast.
what I was up there. I use it all the
You
time when
didn't
I'm
wound
not
him.
on
You
this podcast.
inspired him.
Okay.
I know. I'm like, I have a name for them now. I don't have to call them my legal guardians. This is awesome. Thank you, Mark. And I always say, like, hashtag Mark Radulich 2024.
No, there's no way I'm going to run for office.
When I was like,
You, boy.
hashtag, you said it in
Oh, okay,
2024.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Hashtag
unless
Mark
everyone gets really cool about a lot of stuff really quickly.
Radulich. Oh,
Thank you, John
no, it's like,
Mulaney.
I met some like really cool religious. Well, excuse me, scratch that. Because where I'm going, I met some really awesome spiritual people that were in the Christian church. Who were like, listen, I'm not a huge fan of Harry Potter because it kind of worries me. But you know what? I'm going to read it. And then they did, and they were like, oh man, this is about friendship and fighting evil. What the fuck were we bitching about? They were very quickly asked to leave the church. There was, again, hand to God, no pun intended with what this show is all about. There were people that would vanish from church that, again, thank God Facebook existed, because they were asked by the deacon boards, who, again, for Southern Baptist Church, for those of you who don't know how that works, the pastor is not in charge of the church. God isn't even in charge of the church. It's the deacon board, who is usually bank managers and construction managers, that run the church. And if you should ever go against them, then the Lord will smite you by their own hand.
Can I? I'm going to interject something.
Shoot.
It's a Sean Comer line about a subject we were talking about. I don't remember which podcast this was. We were talking about Gina Carano, though. This goes to what you're talking about. I'm trying to make that bridge, that point. Gina Carano, who's a conservative, was very outspoken about certain particular issues, and she took the conservative side. And Disney was like, "Shut the fuck up! You're playing it. You're playing a minor character in our stupid Star Wars show. Please shut up." And Gina Carano was like, "If I was a liberal, I could say whatever I want, and no one would care. But I'm a conservative, and suddenly I'm fucking with the money." And that was Sean's line. It was like, Gina was told explicitly, "Don't fuck with the money. Don't say stuff that's going to get us in trouble." Because if you say X and it costs us funding or people watching or anything else like that, that's a problem. It isn't what necessarily the content of what you're saying. It's if you say it to the wrong audience, this is going to cost us in the end. Don't fuck with the money, Gina. And to your point, I guarantee you the people running that church were like, we need to make this, we need to be all on the same page and make this look unified, because if anybody steps out of line and costs us however, money or prestige this church has, that's a problem.
Yeah, and that basically was my point. It was the difference, though, is like you would be around Christian people. And the reason I want to make this clear is that a lot of times in media now, if there is a Christian person, I mean, kind of going back to what I previously said, if they're not like super pious and usually in a Catholic church and dressed as a priest, and even then you're rolling the dice on what that character is going to be, they're evil. Which is fair because, again, squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's just, again, what was so interesting and also terrifying about this show was I have lived this just in the 2000s, not the 80s. This is real,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Which is also why I also want to talk a little bit more about our other major plot and our other major evil bitch in the show, and that is Judith. Did you find her age?
I found her. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no! Did you find out how old she is?
21. I'm so happy.
You're safe for another day.
She is fucking mad hot, especially in this show. And my favorite, because I have unfortunately an attraction to crazy. We all have our vices.
Low hanging fruit, Mark.
Pluck away, pluck often. When at the end of the show, where her punishment is you have to go live with your dad in Los Angeles, the implications of what that was, and they shot her face, and it's like it's a more seductive like version of what happened at the end of Pearl, where they just stay close on her face. They backlight it with gold lighting, and she has the fucking best crazy eyes I've seen since Pearl. I'm like, this is I want that on my wall. That look on her face. Yeah, Judith is fucking smoking hot, and she's my favorite character in this entire show.
She's gonna go get a role on Saved by the Bell where she'll start screaming, "I'm so excited" about
Oh
caffeine
yeah,
pills.
she's definitely got some Jessie vibes going.
Especially when she crimps her hair out that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this girl, it's hilarious is that she thinks that Dylan is starting the cult. She's kind of the ringleader of the cult.
She has actually the best line in this entire show. When she's explaining why Gavin Napier, it's past my bedtime at Bruce Campbell for President of the United States of America. Yeah, well, I'm sure Alexis will be right there with you.
Oh hell yeah.
She has the best line on the show. When her and Dylan get caught screwing in the warehouse and the pentagram in the house behind Grandma's backyard at the bottom of the river, and she has to explain to Grandpa Bruce Campbell why, and she's like, "I am known for my looks, and it's all everyone ever sees, and it's lonely. And I'm doing this because it was a way for me to be seen as a person and not entirely as a sex object." And I was like, yeah, that tracks. That's the best line in this entire show. This person going, "I started a cult and got into Satanism because it was the only thing that separated me from the rest of this fucking town of phonies." I'm like, the show is not exactly fucking The Wire or Shakespeare, but there's some really good stuff written in here, and that is a great bit of dialogue.
The phrase "I wanted to be seen" shows up a lot, especially amongst the teenage characters. So, but I do love that ending scene with not the whole "I'm going to Los Angeles." The rest of the cult basically telling Judith, "Okay, enough is enough," and her mom just grabbing her by the ear and she's going, "Mom!" It's just like, oh
Mommy.
my god, there was something so sad about it.
You're right, "Mommy, you're embarrassing me." I fucking died laughing.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, this girl arranged to lose her virginity to Dylan in a pentagram surrounded by everyone else in this cult in a fucking sex initiation. And yeah, I just love the look on Bruce Campbell's face when he storms through there. It's just like, you just caught your granddaughter. It's like, how would you? It's like, it literally just like, how else would anyone react to seeing this? It is literally the ultimate WTF moment for anyone's life.
God, well, just because what I like about Bruce Campbell is my other favorite character in this entire show.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, he says
how weird is
like,
it to see him playing it straight?
Oh, it was great. They needed him. They needed his gravitas, believe it or not. I know, like, what he's known for is throwing himself hither and yon around the set and having guts thrown all over him. And you can't do that on television style. So it was nice to actually have him be like the voice of reason in the show and say things like, "This town is ready to lynch you. I am trying to protect you, and all you've done is fight me. You have done everything wrong to make this as hard on me as possible, and I don't know what to do here." Then later on in the show, where they're talking about, is there a demonic possession going on? And and he kind of does the Spock thing of, "We've eliminated every other explanation for this, so you must accept," and I'm going to paraphrase, "you must accept the supernatural." He's like, "I'm not going to ignore things that are right in front of me." Like, he never.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
When you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Right, and he more or less says that in the police station.
Yeah,
and the best part about this show, other than some of the political, religious stuff, is everybody here acts like a human being. At no point in this show was I starting to think to myself, no, even as a drama, or a horror show or whatever, no one truly acts that way. No. He's doing exactly what somebody in that role would do. You can have some minor quibbles because it's a fiction, but I think it gets close enough to real human behavior that it didn't piss me off, and I'm real sensitive to that sort of thing. Dylan saying, "I think we should fake a cult because otherwise no one will listen to our music," completely tracked with me. Oh, and by the way, the allusions in this show to mayhem are fucking hilarious. If you guys don't know like the history of mayhem and black metal, there's a lot of that going on in this show, and it was great. Speaking of which, of Why Am I Here, reviewed the TV movie about mayhem. Been doing a metal podcast for a zillion years now, so like I recognize a lot of that stuff.
I was going to say, don't you still have the T-shirt that's stained from your Gwar concert?
No. Well, I have the T-shirt. Just to say perhaps the drugs. I unfortunately washed it, and it all came out. But the idea of like, I think it's one of the band pitches where he was taught where Pat, I can't remember the guy's last name, but the guy that does band pitch on TikTok, and he's talking about Alice Cooper, and he was like, I have this band. It does, and they're like, oh well, we already have one of those. No, thank you. He's like, okay, well, what if I paint my face? I wear this ridiculous outfit, and I bite the head off a bat. Jesus Christ, you're gonna do all that? Like. The tacit recognition that you gotta really amp up the theatrics. If you took a poll of every band that discussed or has Satanism as part of their image and whether or not they're really into Satan, I would say more than half, if not almost all of them, are like, no, this is just for the gimmick. And because you got to find a way to differentiate yourself. It was a rare breed of cat that was truly believed in the Church of Satan that played heavy metal. For a lot of them, including Slayer, it was it's just something that interested us and something we wanted to talk about. So, same thing with constantly referencing Nazis and World War II in their music, which boy did that get them the wrong kind of attention. But my point is, like, Dylan's character is a dumb kid, but everything he does makes sense. The way the town reacts to him makes sense. The way Bruce Campbell's character, the sheriff, reacting to this investigation and to the townspeople all makes sense to me. So that's the strength of the writing of this show.
Which unfortunately leads to the weakness of the show, and that's like what we mentioned earlier, and that is the supernatural element. A couple of times in the show, we see a horribly CGI devil. I'm sorry, calling a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm pretty sure the devil from the 1999 film End of Days looked more realistic than this.
Hey, no, worse. The devil from Spawn looked more realistic.
The demon
no, actually, no. I'm sorry. Malbogia in Spawn did not. No, that is unforgivable. That will no. This devil did look better than that.
The demon in this show, or devil, whatever the fuck we're calling it, looked like the porn version of a demon in a porn Hellboy movie.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But yeah, he, she, it, whatever.
Like, you can't argue with him.
Shows up a couple of times, and it really does go nowhere. So we see all this stuff happening to Linda, and we are led to believe at the end of it is just the mass hysteria. She had a psychological break. She pretty much just kind of lost her damn mind at this fear of her son being a Satanist. But there's so many things that they frame it like, no, that actually looked a little more supernatural. If this show was trying to get across that what was happening to her was actually damn straight, Jesse, was
Hail the King, baby,
was just a psychological break, they did not shoot it like that.
Yeah,
they shot the scene of her being dragged up the stairs and being chucked onto the coffee table, the scene in the bar where she sees the demonic shadow in the mirror and it shatters and she falls back and she can't move and she can't breathe. None of that is explained. The rash that breaks out on everyone is never explained. I mean, I'm assuming it was supposed to be hives or something, but we never get a clear indication of what was causing that. There is a lot of the mass hysteria that does make sense. I do like the scene where Bruce Campbell's the sheriff shows up to this woman who says her pipes are bleeding, and he turns on the water and he's like, you need a plumber. That's rust.
So here's where I'm gonna agree with you. One, I like I said at the top of this, the supernatural stuff I think sucks in this show. I really hate it. I think it takes away from the point the show is trying to make, and it weakens it. And it feels like a studio note. But I think the worst part of it is if you're playing with the idea of an unreliable narrator. Dorian, help me. Am I saying the right? Is it narrator?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're playing with the idea,
yeah. Sorry, that's why I didn't correct you. I was like, "You good? Go."
Okay. If you're playing with the idea of an unreliable narrator, an element of the show where you're questioning whether Julie Bowen is sick or being possessed, I think is a great one.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, but here's the thing: then you have to show everything from Julie Bowen's perspective that is suspect, either supernatural or psychotic. the minute you pull the camera back and do like they do at the very end of the show where the church is burning and the demon just hanging out back there going, how you doing, pals?
Mm.
And you're like, okay, Julie Bowen wasn't a part of that. By that point, she was gone.
Yeah.
She had been cured. What is it where they pull the demon out of you in religion?
Exercised.
Yeah, she'd been either cured or exorcised, one of the two. Either way, this was resolved. We were moving on from this. The goth girl pulls Tracy out of the church, thereby completing her arc as a hero. Bravo.
I do love her line. You're not Jesus, Tracy. You don't get to die like a martyr.
Yes,
that was such a good line.
She's a great character in this. She's another one that could have been written really shrill and stupid and is written really well. But the final shot is the demon hanging out in the back of the fucking church where none of the characters who you don't know if they're psychotic or possessed have already moved away from. So that's an audience perspective thing, and I hated it for that. And Dorian, you can see you're ready to jump on this, so be my guest. But I hated that shot. I really felt like that was, we don't want to commit to an answer, so we'll just fuck with the audience. And I'm like, come on, man, land the plane appropriately. Don't crash it into the goddamn runway.
And absolutely, there's so many ways to achieve that. And again, if you're going to call the show Hysteria, and we're focusing on the Satanic Panic, I'm not saying that you have to go full, you mentioned The Wire earlier, Mark. I'm not saying you have to go that far. There's ways that you can do it, especially, again, coming back to my point of view in the 2000s, is a lot of people have gotten smarter, and even though that, the deacon board that I mentioned earlier was very, you are possessed by the devil. I'll tell a very quick story that actually attaches to what I'm about to say. I got in trouble for in church because I was not a huge fan of rap because it'd been beaten into my head,
racist,
literally, that rap was not good. So, sorry, Mark, what did you say?
I called you a racist.
He's right. I didn't say. Well, no, because what I didn't like was, again, I was born and raised in Northeast, so it was kind of one of those. Well, I like some of this stuff, hip hop and stuff that I know, but I was told and again physically beaten into my head that rap is bad. So there was a Christian rapper named Toby Mac, and I was like, why are we having his stuff up here if we say rap is bad? Oh, well, his rap is fine. I'm like, and I threw my hands up and went, this doesn't make any sense. And my
doesn't make a lick of sense.
My hand to God again. I got looked at like, again, I had just said, let's murder and eat like 16 puppies. And the youth pastor was like, you were obviously possessed by the devil and we need to deal with this. And he said it straight faced.
Okay.
And so, but there were even people in the 2000s like, well, maybe he has a drug problem. Maybe
Right.
he's on drugs. I mean, the people who are raising him are completely insane. It wouldn't shock me if he tried to pick up drugs. In fact, I'd be like, dude, you shouldn't do that, but I feel you. But with all of that in mind, there were ways to play this like it could have been, post fears of Tracy from her reprogramming. We always do that point of view shot with the serial killers following someone. We could have easily switched that around if she's being drugged up the stairs.
Right.
Even if she's like we actually see we could find out later, I'm saying. She's crawling herself up the stairs as she's having this attack, but what she sees in her eyes is this demon, doing this. And again, you could have left it very Inception open at the end where maybe we're talking with Bruce Campbell or somebody else like that, and they just put something on the table and we don't even see what it is. They just look at it and they're just all like, really? Look to the camera and cut to black. Because again, if it's about hysteria, then we have to leave that as ambiguous as possible that it's not actually. But again, the minute you pull the rug out, much like they did like with the Halloween movies, where it's like, oh yeah, no, he's like Jason now. He's immortal, and it loses the fire.
Yeah, like what are we doing? What are we doing here? When a half-pregnant supernatural story is not a good supernatural story, Alexis.
I was waiting. Okay, so another thing we never get an explanation for is that earthquake in the opening in the first episode. What I was waiting for was someone mentions, my mom says it was a gas leak or something like that. I was waiting for it to be like a hallucinogenic, a gas that can cause hallucinations. Maybe the rash on the skin is another, it's an airborne toxin that can cause rashes on the skin. Not unheard of.
It's a small town. One of the farmers used a pesticide they shouldn't have. Everyone's been eating from that for the last year. Boom, rash.
Yeah, I was waiting for that to be the reason why Julie Bowen's all fucked up at the end of the show.
Exactly. It's like this show, as good as the show is, it felt like it could not make up its mind if they wanted to be there is something supernatural or it is just mass hysteria. It's like Children of the Corn if there was absolutely no other supernatural elements, and then all of a sudden he who walks behind the rose just briefly shows up and go, nope, or something like that.
I'm going back.
I don't know what that comment means. I don't know what she's talking about.
I don't either. Hang on, adjust my computer here. What, Shay? I'm sorry, we don't know what that means.
No, Dorian does. That's why he's laughing. Go ahead, Dorian.
No, Shay, please explain it to the class. It's your comment. But no, I'm going to go back and kind of bounce off what Mark said. Is that it was a studio notes situation that
you just muted yourself, pal.
Oh, it felt more like a studio note situation that maybe his original script was like what we're talking about, and they were like, but kids like supernatural. And here's the thing, Hollywood, I know you're really not watching this, but maybe you'll catch a blip of this that he puts up on TikTok. No, we don't all the time.
Here's what I'll tell you. You know which show handled this much better and wasn't like a half comedy, half horror, half whatever the fuck this thing is supposed to be? Oh, damn it. Alexis. We did it with Ben Cologne. It was a Mike Flanagan show. The church.
Midnight Mass.
Thank you. Midnight Mass. Okay. Shay said HFF is hand and foot mouth.
Oh, okay. You know what? I actually remember getting that when I was a child. Yeah, it's very common.
Midnight Mass handled this.
Explain it further, and so that's why I was like, I'm going to laugh and let her take her own joke.
I was expecting HFM was going to be something more like, oh, ha ha ha. That's like, yeah, hand, foot, and mouth. We all know what that is.
Midnight Mass handled this well. The town has got a supernatural thing going on. It commits to it the whole way through. People are dying under the heat of the sun. There are bats. Everything. This town is besieged by all manner of horror creature, and it's treated with deadly seriousness. You are absolutely, and so I remember because I cut this for TikTok, but the priest speech that he gives, and I told you like we are in a war, and I remember like I love that speech because he's so impatient and irritated with the entire town that they will not get on board with this, and he's like, "We're in a war, go fuck yourselves," or something along those lines, and just like walks off. It was treated with a seriousness to where the audience couldn't help but be with the narrative of the show. That's a big problem I have with this show, is because they can't commit to one thing or another. Then I can't, as an audience member, commit to the seriousness of the show. I'm like, I don't know what we're doing anymore. And if it wasn't for the characterizations and relationships, there wouldn't have been anything left for me to buy into with this show. Absolutely. And again, that's why I will always salute, even though it's a slow season of it. I'm an American Horror Story fan. I'm unapologetic about that. But I felt like the first season was like, yep, there's ghosts and some shit's happening. There's also some demonic crap. Everybody good with that? Cool. Here we go. But if you're gonna do this, again, I know we've said this 1,000 times, but we'll move on. But I have one more point to make with it. Decide what you're gonna do. Pick a lane, or make it a mystery where we're following Bruce Campbell and him going, "Hey, I used to be a man of faith. I believed in demons." I mean, you don't have to do that whole cliche of like, "I was a man of faith, but I'm not anymore. But this thing will now make me a man of faith again." Kind of crap. But like, even if he's a man of faith, like you were talking about with your dad, Mark, with like he was a Catholic atheist. Where it's like he's trying to figure out this mystery as not only a police officer, but also as someone who knows, the intricacies of theology and stuff like that. That could have made it more interesting and balanced between Hysteria. I want to throw this out there, and I'm going to make this really, really quick because I know someone starts to say what I'm about to say, and you're in for 20-minute fucking TED talking. I hate you all, and I wish you'd all stop doing that. So I won't do it either. But the minute pro wrestling starts to suck is when pro wrestling in and of itself convinces you it isn't real. Pro wrestling is awesome when you forget that it's fake. And it does all of the things you're supposed to do to create the illusion you have entered a whole new world and it is real as shit. That's the best wrestling.
That is movie and stage and entertainment at its core.
Yeah, I was gonna say the minute that the uncanny valley hits you and you realize that it's fake is the moment that you stop enjoying it.
It admits the fourth wall is broken.
I said that I'll reference a different David Simon show for the first time in my life, The Deuce. At the end of The Deuce, Dominique Fishback's character says to her pimp, "You should have never let me see you act, because once I saw the difference between you as a person and you as an actor, the fantasy that was created amongst pimp and whore completely disappeared, and I have no buy-in now, and I don't want to be with you. You lost control of me when the fantasy dissipated." That's how television works.
God, did they rip that line for Joker Folie à Deux? Because that's almost exactly what she says to him. We have the fantasy, and now we don't even have that anymore.
Kinda, yeah. Well, all the best stuff comes from David Simon. Hi, Robert. So
he just pops up on the screen. What the fuck?
Just runs in from Utah, hits me with a chair. Speaking of wrestling.
Right.
All right, Alexis, take us to either a different topic or the conclusion.
The only time that I thought the use of the CGI devil was appropriate is honestly when Tracy saw it. The first time she sees it is at that bonfire, and she had taken, I don't know what that drug was supposed to be. It's like, I'm sure it could have been a million things. So I kind of got the idea at first. I was like, well, maybe she saw the devil through the fire because she was on drugs, and then when she's being drugged out of the church and she sees it again, I was like, well, if those two were the only times we saw the devil, I think it would have been great. Because again, it's like she is, breathing in smoke, clearly not getting enough oxygen. She turns to see the devil. She's not in the right state of mind, so it's like, yeah, it would make sense she sees the devil again. But having the devil pop up multitude of times, it kills it. And I feel really bad for the creator because he said he wants a season 2 out of this. And frankly, I don't know where they could go with a season 2 on this. Again, except Dorian, you mentioned that they go the anthology route and we do various different mass hysteria events, which could be interesting.
I'm out. One was enough.
I think honestly, and again, I will argue this directly to Mark. I think if they took, because I believe the Purge movies did this as well. The Purge movies got better and more interesting as they went on because the creators,
third one is fantastic.
Well, because the creators learned from their mistakes in the previous ones.
So then they admitted that the point of the Purge is that it doesn't work. Right. That's what makes the later Purge movies so good.
Thus the line, it just works. So I think if the creators of this, even the main creator, whose name I'm sorry, sir, have forgotten, looks at this and goes, okay, first one, okay, I kind of got my story across, but maybe there's some exec notes, but enough people liked it. I mean, the people from W2M Network liked it, and anything they like gets 5-6 seasons, So if they did it in an anthology, as John Carpenter originally wanted Halloween, where it's like we're going now to a different town, we're approaching it from a different way, and they learn from their mistakes, I think that could be interesting.
On the other hand, you could have Halloween 3, which nobody likes.
You shut your whore mouth. Halloween 3 is amazing.
Good. You and Sean Comer can kiss and go on a date and discuss it. I've already done that podcast, by the way. I have seen all
Silver
of these
Shamrock.
My point is, isn't it a well-known fact that everyone fucking hates Halloween 3?
Well, no, it's changed a lot. Like a lot of movies, it's got
a cult following now, Mark. Okay, cult following.
Yeah, that's my cult following.
Right, and no, again, that's fair, and that's one of the beauties of this show is that for those of you who are just watching the audio, he jerked himself off and threw his own cum in his face. So,
yeah, because that really needed to be explained.
Now you need visual. It's for the
audio.
Those of
you only listening, he pulled it out. What? And that's how
Dorian Price, the man.
Watch our amount of viewers just massively drop.
Watch the amount of viewers possibly go, like, he fucking snapped finally. Like, Alexis finally drove him crazy. He pulled his dick out and everything.
But no, it's but again, it makes sense. That's one of the beautiful things about this podcast. It's like it will affect people different way. And I think a season 2 could be interesting if they do it that way. Again, I'm not in control. I don't know this guy. I don't know what he's going to do. But I think with how the world is now, yes, Mark, you brought up the whole thing of, you didn't like the political references. I get that completely. But it's a way of connecting to other audience members and bringing them in going, you know what? This whole shit that this show's about, we are living through this just in a kind of weird alternate future universe here, but I think a second season would be interesting. I don't think we need one. I think this could stand on its own, but I'd be interested again if they, since everyone watches the W2M network, who has any control on anything, if he hit me up tomorrow and was like, my dude, I love your anthology idea, let's work on this, or they've already had that idea. And something
I finally figured out why you keep coming on this podcast. This is your way of angling for jobs.
How'd you get famous? W2M network and jerking around
on this really stupid ass podcast, and every time I went on, I was like, and I'm available for work.
I kept fixing everything we watched when there were problems with it, so they'd be able to hear that.
All right, Alexis, for the love of God.
I will say this. I did really enjoy the kid characters. What the hell is his name? MJ Anthony plays Dylan. I didn't realize that this was the kid from one of my favorite Christmas movies, Krampus. Kids growing up. Really liked him. Absolutely loved Chiarella and Kezzy Curtis as Jordy and Spud. I believe that these three were best friends. I believe that they worked well together as this band as Dethkrunch.
They do a sick cover on the show of Number of the Beast. I enjoyed that.
That they did. I liked watching them, and
if that's that girl's real voice, she's got some pipes.
I can't find any reference if she was dubbed or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do kind of wish, as interesting as it was to see more of what's going on with the town, I kind of wish we had spent a little bit more time with the kids. I especially loved when we got a little bit further into the season and we start seeing the other kids getting drawn into this and how this changes them. We have Millie Shapiro, who you guys might remember from Hereditary. She plays Ingrid, or Goat Girl, who ends up having a major role in this. And again, I think it's fascinating to see the way that this cult, as they call it, kind of brings all of them together. I love that she starts hanging out, becoming besties with one of the most popular jocks in the school, to the point that I didn't quite get why they were releasing chickens in the school. I think it was a prank, but I still thought that was kind of funny that they were doing a prank together. They go to the dance together. I love, we see the kids from the theater and the a cappella department joining in. I thought this was just kind of a cool concept that this satanic cult is bringing all these kids together and making new friends. And I thought if that was actually...
The element and culture of punk rock and heavy metal has always drawn people who feel like square pegs and round holes. That's sort of the nature of them. So in this particular case, it was a quote unquote satanic cult. But I mean, like, we've all known kids, or maybe been those kids who sought out something that was subversive because the life around you felt unfulfilling. So all that tracked for me.
I kind of wish we had seen more of these kids bonding. Again, I like the idea that something like this, they had found friendship, and the fact that even when the cult ended, they still seemed like they wanted to stay friends.
Yeah.
I wish we had seen a little bit more of that, just because I thought that would have been a nice touch. But, again, we've only got so much time and everything, and we got to make sure we insert those scenes of the mom from Modern Family getting tortured by apparently her own mental breakdown.
Well, if you watch Modern Family, I'm sure some people found that kinky.
That was one of my parents' favorite shows. They watched it.
Modern Family was quite
time.
good. I was sad when it ended.
Yeah, no, it had its moments. I just never watched it that much. So, but the show does have some really good moments. I fell off the couch laughing actually in the first episode when Spud brings in the T-shirts. He's like, "I got T-shirts for the band," and they're like, "You needed a pentagram. 5 points. That's a star. That's a Star of David, 6 points, and it's on fire. That's not a pentagram. That's a hate crime. That was really good.
It felt a bit modern, but I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And like I said, there were a lot of really good moments, but as a whole, I think this is best as a one-off. I enjoyed watching it. I'm glad we watched it. Anything that shows people that we still want to see more with Bruce Campbell, of course, is always good. And I loved all of the actors, and I thought they all did a really good job. But frankly, I want to see Matthew Scott Kane move on. I think he clearly has a talent for writing. He clearly brought a lot of really good material into the show. I think we're all in agreement that a lot of the supernatural element was probably inserted by the studio because it really doesn't feel organic to the original story. So I'm really hoping we get more from Kane in future shows, future movies. I don't know, but I think we're seeing the start of a promising career here.
Mark, would you just really quickly on that point, and my last point on that specific point, would you agree with me that slowly but surely supernatural elements being crowbarred into a show or a movie is becoming like the fart joke and the jump scare and the obligatory sex scene? Like, it's not needed. We're just putting it in there because, why not?
Yeah, there's a lot of scrambling in Hollywood to latch onto trends and shove them into movies and television shows because we collectively, I think, the leadership of Hollywood has lost a sense of what Americans want the world, want in their fiction, want in their entertainment. I honestly think, I think, without going too far off in a rant, and Robert and I talk about this all the time on Damn You Hollywood, Hollywood has absolutely lost touch with the average American. They don't know what they want, and they don't know how the technology works, and they don't understand the culture, and they can't. And everything that used to make a lot of sense back in the good old blame it on Rio, woman in red 80s no longer makes any degree of sense. And these people are trying to keep their jobs at this point. Right. So I think in the areas where supernatural stuff has drawn an audience, so it's like, well, that's clearly what everybody. So they become the mom who in The Simpsons got the baby translator, and the baby says, "I want candy," and she's like, "Oh God, that's all you'll ever get." You know. They're like, "You want supernatural stuff? Then supernatural stuff and everything. We'll throw it in. We'll throw it in football. We'll throw it everywhere." It's like, it's not what we wanted.
Oh, yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think we're at a place now for all filmmakers watching this. And again, I take this to heart myself as a fan of supernatural. Is if we're gonna do supernatural, it's become macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese is fine, but if we're eating the same box of macaroni, same type of macaroni and cheese every single night, spice it up with something. Add some garlic or some paprika or something.
Throw some sausages in there. Do something.
Exactly.
All right, Alexis, for the love of God, take control of these two men who won't shut up and make us shut up. Tell us we're bad and move this on.
Are you kidding me? This is the easiest podcast since The Acolyte.
I'm sorry, that cough was so perfect. It was like silence. There was even kind of like a bounce to it. And cut. That's perfect. We're going home, folks. Check the gate. Thank you so much.
I'm about to play the end credits.
Okay. Are there any other points that I forgot? Anything else we wanted to discuss? Because we talked about comparing mass hysteria and the Satanic Panic to our current times. We talked about the supernatural, and we talked about the actors. Were there any scenes, any moments, any characters that anyone wants to talk about? Anything at all?
I will only say this: in a show that is dealing with the connections between religion and music, I wish there'd been more of a discussion of music. I wish there had been more of a discussion of. There's a lot of discussion about the theatricalness of religion in music. There's not a discussion of religion in music, and I wish there had been.
And I think I can tell you why that is. For the longest time, and I know they don't do it anymore, but it's still available to watch on YouTube, and it still has a lot of views. They used to do this thing called "I Love the '80s," and it was just this, and I'm sure you both watched it, but like,
VH1.
We have we have that how wonderful and crazy and insane music was in the 80s. And I think this time they wanted to point the gun the other direction, because shooting a bullet at Christianity, especially fanatical Christianity, has been very, not necessarily frowned upon, but since Alexis earlier made the Stephen King joke at me, even King had to kind of, in his books, it's very rampant, but like when they would take that from page to screen, they'd have to tone it down a little bit. Even, post Reagan and stuff like that, is I think one of the reasons they attacked it this way is that, dude, like, again, Mark, like you said, we've all kind of been that kid. I was very briefly in a band, and we wanted to be raw and crazy too. So I think we all have that experience. I think what the creator wanted to do in this place is put big magnifying glass over the Christian fanaticness that is attached to music, and more focus on that, as opposed to turning the show into a, hey, all these actors can sing really well and jam really well, and this music's awesome, and we all love it, and but
the show takes
more...
place in 1989. There's not a single Striper reference, nor is there's a couple of Slayer references, a couple of Metallica references.
Most of the references are for Ozzy.
Yeah, a lot of Ozzy. I don't remember if they even mentioned Mayhem or not. But how do you? And now I gotta look and see when all that shit took place with the burning of the churches in Norway. But how do you do a show like this and not reference that stuff?
And I think it was a failing, or I think it was a misstep, not a failing. I correct myself. I think it was a misstep, but I think it was more his intention to focus on how the reaction of fanatical Christians towards music, and how that just fanned the fires of, well, okay, mom and dad, if you're pissed about this, I'm just going to do it more. I mean, it's hail Satan kind of shit, as opposed to, and that's just my point of view from watching the show, is I felt like that was more the direction he was trying to take it, which is a good thing. And I feel bad for bookending it like this, but with the current situation we have, again, we're a month away, and I know you all didn't want me to remind you of this, but TV reminds you YouTube reminds you every 30 seconds that we're up to, voting time. I think with all of the insanity that has happened from the, again, fanatical conservative, because there are good conservatives out there. Some people are probably fans of this show. We're probably upset that we cuss so much, but
there's a difference between a Republican and a MAGA.
Right. I think it's a good thing to be able to use a TV show to put a microscope or a magnifying glass on this, so it can inform people that not everybody who says I'm Republican is MAGA. Not every person that says that I'm a Christian, I believe in God, I believe in Christ, is an insane monster. A case in point, he would never be on this show because one of the Berg rules of engagement is, if the show or movie has anything to do with demonic possession, I'm out. And that's Mr. Andrew Berg, who's been on for Bike Riders. He would not have liked this show, but he probably would have still watched it with, again, the arguments we've made of, well, I thought it was going to be about the hysteria of it. So I think, again, wrapping up, I think originally the creator really wanted to focus more on the insanity that came from fanatical Christians, and the music, because of that, in the music references, did suffer.
Absolutely. If you are interested in a TV show about mass hysteria, you know what, the show, I would say the show still has more positives than negatives. I would say if you're really into that kind of stuff, go check it out, but I would not mandate this as the, oh my God, you got to go see this stuff. So what would you guys say? Probably about the same, or would you tell people just to skip it?
It's not a badly written show. It's entertaining. I give it a watch.
Yeah. Bruce Campbell's in it. I don't know a lot of people who don't love Bruce Campbell. Every actor is bringing their A game to it. The writing's great. It's a good romp. You've heard our thoughts about it. And again, please, commenters, tell us in the comments where we were wrong, and so we can go back to the show and reevaluate that.
All right. Was there any other points that anyone else?
No,
wanted to
end the show.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Mark wants to leave now. Mark wanted to leave 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 32, 33, 34 seconds ago.
At least 19 minutes ago, not the whole podcast.
Okay, fine. Well then, Mr. Radulich, why don't you do your plugs first?
Super. I would love to. All right. So I was just on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, and hey, when I'm on that show now, we can stream directly to W2M Network. So that was the first and a fun time. We're currently having an issue where we can't share the audio from Spreaker to YouTube. So I will be doing a lot of editing in the future, and we'll be getting those up as clips instead of full audio shows. But then you get to see pretty faces, so that's fun. In any case, we talked about Piece by Piece, which made my top 10 for the year, and Woman of the Hour, which was Anna Kendrick's directorial debut about the serial killer who went on the dating game. Good movie. She did a great job directing it. Definitely worth a watch. It's on Netflix if you get a chance. The opposite of that, on Monday, Robert and I reviewed the top 10 worst movies of the year. I fucked up, and one of them was from 2023, but that's besides the point. We did brief touches on Lift, Founders Day, Unfrosted, Night Swim, Atlas, The Outlaws, Space Cadet, Jackpot, Damsel, and Uglies. And yes, I definitely filled out my bottom 5 doing all of that. Robert got through it. He's still alive. So Sunday,
it's like you both survived the Uglies. You've earned your rest.
Bad. Yeah. On Sunday, Jesse and I did an episode of Sessions. So we have a new logo, we have a new theme, and we have a very special Damn You Hollywood, the song, which I meddled up. So that's fun. Next week, we've got just 2 shows, Monday and Tuesday, because it's Halloween week and I needed a little bit of time off. On Sunday, we've got the Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox. We're doing Motley Crue Canceled. That's going to be myself, Robert Cooper, and I think Mick Wanamaker may show up. Who knows? Monday night, we've got Venom, The Last Dance. That's going to be myself, Jason Teasley, Robert Winfrey, and Pat Mullen. And then I am off for the rest of the week. So on Halloween, I'm actually going to give out candy with my kids. I'm done talking now.
All right, Mr. Price.
Yeah, as always, at Frankie Pictures. If it needs to be filmed, needs to be photographed, needs to be edited, we want to make your creation come to life. Just finished up finally. Well, I mean, got the last pokey bits to do for Mr. Drew Six's, and that is the name Drew and the letter 6. Just Spit Time video. We're very excited about that. A whole bunch of stuff going to be in Denver this weekend with Elton Dan and the Rocket Band. Also very excited about that. But yeah, that's what I've got going on. And don't freak out, folks. For those of you watching video, Mr. Radulich had to leave suddenly, but that is what happens when you run an entire podcast and you're a parent and you kind of hold up the entire universe on your shoulders, especially with the friends you have. So that's me done.
All right. Dorian, you will also be coming on next week for a source material podcast we'll be doing with Jesse Starcher, discussing the comic Serial. What if the serial monsters like Count Chocula, Frankenberry, Boo Berry, and such were living in a time of the Universal Monsters? This is an awesome comic. I have been begging Jesse for us to do a review, especially with Halloween fast approaching. God, October is going by too fast.
Right. No, that's Monday, right? Or am I drunk?
The 29th?
20. That's a Tuesday. My bad. No. Cool. I looked at the wrong day. That's fine. I was double checking. I'm like, I am on that. But no, as promised, Alexis, I will not be coming dressed as Count Chocula.
You keep saying that, and now I feel like we need a constant drumbeat or something of what you actually will be dressed as. All right, so we got that
on Tuesday.
We will on November 6th, we'll be reviewing Agatha All Along, followed shortly after by season 4 of Only Murders in the Building. As far as the plugs that actually do pay my bills, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We just wrapped up Planet Anime here in Kansas City, and now I'm getting ready for the Twin Cities Con up in Minneapolis. We are a last-minute edition for that convention. Looking forward to those. Got some great guests. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. That's our last convention of the year as we wind down and get ready for our holiday rush. And a reminder about our charity drive. We do this every year, starting from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. Every order that is placed from either our Etsy shop or our Handmade at Amazon shop, for every order placed, we will be donating $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Again, you can find us on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. You can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I refuse to call it X, and TikTok. So for myself, for the disappearing Mr. Radulich, from Mr. Price, be well, be safe, and hail Satan!